Hola, muy buenas tardes. Espero que ustedes estén disfrutando del buen tiempo y que se encuentren bien. Am, entonces, hoy nosotros vamos a ver nuestro último tiempo verbal nuevo del semestre, que se llama el imperfecto. Primero, ¿qué es el imperfecto? Porque esto puede ser un poco difícil para nosotros como anglohablantes. This can get a little bit difficult for non-native Spanish speakers, especially for English speakers, because it's a distinction that we often don't make in English. So the imperfect is another past tense. So it refers to things that have already happened. Um, and we're going to tag a lot more because we're probably thinking, like, wait, we have the preterite for that. And we're going to talk a lot more about that next week. Probably we're going to do a lesson on the preterite versus the imperfect, since again they both take place in the past. The good news is the imperfect is much easier to form. It's much easier to conjugate, as we'll see. And so for now, just kind of focus on learning the conjugations. That's what we're going to look at for now, and then we'll get much more into the use next week, probably. So for this lesson, kind of look at the imperfect, and again we'll go into this in a lot more detail. The imperfect is typically used to represent either a habitual action, so something I did more than once in the past, or to represent an action in the past that does not have a clear-cut beginning and end. Those are the primary uses of the imperfect, but we will look at that in a much greater detail going forward. So here, let's just focus on the conjugation. As we'll see, it's pretty easy. So let's see if we can kind of follow along, because this is normally the time I would be drawing on the board the different endings. Can't really do that very well on a computer here, and if I hold this up, I can't really see it either. So the good news is that we're going to see that it again follows the exact same pattern. So we're going to isolate the stem, which is to say we're going to take off the AR, the ER, or the IR. And then we're going to add the endings, and that's it. So exact same process, just different endings. So let's take a look. Entonces, por ejemplo, aquí tenemos en la universidad, yo siempre trabajaba y estudiaba. So here we have something I did multiple times. Again, going off of what we talked about with what it kind of expresses, and it's something that doesn't have a clear defined end. O cuando yo tenía 10 años, solo hablaba inglés porque yo comencé a estudiar y aprender español más o menos a los 14 años, más o menos. ¿Hablaban ustedes otro idioma a los 10 años? Yo no sé. A lo mejor sí. O cuando yo estaba en la secundaria, escuchaba AC/DC. Ahora realmente no. Antes sí, ahora no. I think I've still got them all on my iPod. O ¿qué escuchabas tú en la secundaria? O cuando estábamos en la secundaria teníamos menos tarea. Eso definitivamente sí. O aquí, el niño rebelde nunca hacía la tarea. ¿Hacías tú la tarea? So are we seeing kind of a pattern here? Or actually two patterns, I should say. Claro que ustedes hacían la tarea. O él compraba CDs antes de los MP3. O no es natural para mí la forma vosotros. ¿Comprabais vosotros CDs? Yo sí. Pero vosotros siempre teníais MP3. So, those were just some examples, and we can see here we've got the endings that we've been using. So we have two sets of endings only, which is good for us. So we've got our AR verbs up here, and we can see their corresponding forms. And then we've got our ER and IR verbs down here. We can see that they're different from the AR forms, obviously, but that there is no difference between the conjugation of an ER and an IR verb in the proto, which makes our lives a little bit easier. We also want to take note that there actually is no difference in the conjugation between the yo and the ele usted form in either of them. So for that, we're really going to depend on context, or we may include the subject pronoun. But that's just one more thing to be aware of. So those are the endings we're going to apply. Now, how about the irregulars? In language, there are always exceptions. However, the good news is that in the imperfect, in the entire Spanish language, there are only 3 irregular verbs in the imperfect. Great news for us, right? Entonces, ¿cuáles son? Tenemos ir. Entonces tenemos yo iba, tú ibas, él y usted iba, nosotros íbamos, vosotros ibais, ellos y ustedes iban. Luego tenemos ser. Tenemos yo era, tú eras, él y usted era, nosotros éramos, vosotros erais, ellos y ustedes eran. And then, if we look at ver, our last one here, it's barely irregular. Essentially, all that we're doing is we're keeping the e of the stem. With a regular verb we would take off the ar, the er, the ir. Here we're only taking off the e, or excuse me, we're only taking off the r. We're leaving the e, and then we're tacking the endings onto that. But other than that, the endings are actually normal. So we've got yo veía, tú veías, él y usted veía, nosotros veíamos, vosotros veíais, y ellos y ustedes veían. And those are the only irregular verbs in the imperfect tense in the entire Spanish language. So that's the good news for us, is if it's not one of these 3 verbs, we know that it is going to be regular. So again, the conjugation of this is actually probably, arguably, the easiest form to conjugate in the language. So let's take a look at a few examples of those irregular ones now. So we've got cuando yo era niño nunca iba de compras. O nosotros éramos unos niños inteligentes. O nosotros íbamos a la escuela todos los días. O cuando yo tenía 10 años, veía mucho la película Independence Day. That's definitely a guilty pleasure movie for me. Wouldn't say I watched it every day, but when I was younger, yeah, probably close to once a week. O ¿qué veían ustedes? Me imagino que no Independence Day. All right. So that's it. We got all of our regulars and then 3 exceptions. What are the 3 exceptions again? Ser, ir, ver. Unless it is ser or ir or ver, we know it's going to be regular. So let's do a little bit of practice. I'll kind of do a pause here, like with the blank for each one. So feel free to pause the video as you're going if you need any more time. Vamos a ver. Nosotros teníamos un perro cuando yo era niño. How about here? Ella se sentía cansada después de la clase de español. Tu instructor tenía una mascota en casa cuando era niño. Aquí estoy yo, that's close to 20 years ago now, con mi conejillo de indias, my guinea pig. Se llamaba Bessie. O aquí, nosotros no comprábamos cerveza cuando teníamos 10 años, al menos espero. O en los años 90, estos lentes de sol costaban. So be careful. Lentes de sol, plural, so costaban $1. Now, let's do a little practice with our 3 irregulars. Again, what are our 3 irregulars? Ser, ir, and ver. That's it. Entonces, yo iba a la playa cuando tenía tiempo. Nosotros éramos buenos estudiantes y todavía lo somos. So we can see we need to keep our accents. And again, that's just word stress. So we're saying éramos. We're preserving that tonic syllable as opposed to éramos, which is what we would have if we didn't have that accent. Aquí. ¿Veías tú béisbol cuando eras niño? ¿O iban ustedes a la playa cuando eran niños? Okay, so that is it. So that is it for the conjugation of the imperfect. So very straightforward. Only 3 irregulars in the entire language. And other than that, just 2 sets of endings that we need to make sure that we know. So just the ARs are the ABA, ABAS, ABA, ABAN, etc. And then the ER and IRs are the IA, IA, IAS, IAN, etc. And if we know those, we can really conjugate any verb in the entire language. So you'll see we've got a couple of homework assignments for tomorrow to practice just our conjugation with this. And then I will be sending out an email soon, later today, just to kind of update us on how the oral exam is going to work. Because I think I figured out how to do it on Zoom. So I will be letting you know about that. So si tienen preguntas, por favor, no duden en publicar en el foro en Carmen. Entonces, muchas gracias por su atención. Que estén bien y hasta pronto.